wanted to look at this idea of the acceptance of trans women as women, by natal women that is, from the point of view of a man. And I was thinking about Buck Angel. I put his pick up, and I talked about in a recent video, last video I think. And there are many people like him. You know, he's a trans man, and Buck Angel has retained a functioning vagina. He's a trans man, and you know, he looks like a guy, he acts like a guy, and I have never met him myself, but I've certainly spoken to people who know him, and they say, yeah, he's a totally cool guy, you know, just regular bloke, you know, go for a beer, likes to go on his motorcycle, that sort of stuff, not a problem. He's rather short, but you know, he's still a dude, you know. And I have friends who are trans men, and they're men. You know, they might be fathers to, their partners are invariably very feminine, conventional women. They're not partnered with lesbians. They're partnered with ordinary, conventional females, frequently mothers, and these trans men are performing the role of fathers and providers for these families. And you have to commend them. You have to say, look, that's pretty cool actually. And I had to ask myself, you know, thinking about all this intemperate rejection of and attack on trans women that seems to be coming about in the West at the moment, which is largely a result, it's a reaction to far too much nonsense from trans activists, you know, who've been pushing certain points of view far too hard. They should, I mean, I told them 5 years ago to shut the fuck up because they were going to get in trouble. They weren't listening to me, were they? Anyway, to try to get a view on how women would feel about this, I had to, you know, interrogate my own feelings about how I felt about trans men. There are some issues, you know, you do have to ask yourself, and you have to resolve these, how you feel about someone who wasn't born with a penis being in spaces that are reserved normally for men. Now, these spaces have become reduced in the West, but here in Southeast Asia, there's plenty of. There's not going to be any women there, and in any social gathering here in Southeast Asia that I've been at for many years now, you know, you'll see there's a group of women, there's a group of men, and generally speaking, there will be no women, none, amongst a group of men. There might be a guy or two with the women. Maybe. It's unlikely. Mostly there won't be. And often if he is, he'll be somebody like me. You're a foreigner. You don't fit in anyway. So it doesn't really matter where you sit. And you're with, you know, I'd be with Sam's, I'm with my girlfriend, my fiancée, so it's like, well, we'll sit with her, you know, because at least she's going to translate for me. But in general terms, the two groups are completely separate. They don't socially mix in the way that has become almost like you have to do it in the West. And I have to say, men are quite happy like that. Most men don't want to mix with women. Simple fact. They don't really like women's company. Because women want to talk about things that don't interest men. You know? And men like to swear a little bit and talk about boobs, bums, you know, good legs, and she's nice. That sort of thing. Motorbikes, yeah, Ducati, I like my Ducati, you know. That Kawasaki, oh, that's a beller, that goes. And, you know, their boats, oh, I like your boat, you know. How much did that one cost you? And did you have to have the mast replaced? And all this sort of stuff. And that bores women stiff. I don't want to know about it. So, you do have to kind of look at it and say, well, how do I feel about someone who has, you know, after all, double X chromosomes, sitting in the group with me talking about, you know, Ducatis and, you know, GTOs and yachts and guitars and Gibsons and whatever else that we're talking about. And the answer is, I don't give a monkeys. As long as they perform as men, as long as the performance is solid, that's all you need to know. You know, the absurdity of this whole argument is that genitalia have anything at all to do with it. They don't. They don't. They have nothing to do with it. I cannot remember ever being in a public gathering where people were inspecting each other's genitalia before they decided where they were going to sit. You decide on the basis of the performance of the other people. People perform gender because gender is essential to society, and they tend to, conform to the gender that they wish to. And if you're a trans man, you try and be a guy and fit in with the guys. And if you're a trans woman, you're going to be a woman, fit in with the women. And so my argument, I don't buy the argument that women are under vast threat from men in the West. I mean, there might be in some countries. I don't buy the idea that there's a rape culture. I think this is all part of the feminist project fear. And if you do the actual numbers, you'll see that it's complete nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. A few years ago, people were claiming that USA was the rape capital of the world, which is total nonsense. If you actually looked at the figures, you would see it's one of the safest places in the world for a woman. There are far more dangerous places to be a woman than USA, even the dangerous parts of USA. These are all lies. These are lies, part of the feminist project fear, which is designed to make ordinary women hate men. Not just hate, but fear men. Fear them because from fear you get hate. And when you get hate, then you have political power. And that's what they're doing. And so I had to look at my own views, and I would say, well, I'm not going to argue with you being, not born a man. Not that anybody ever was, because we're all born as babies. If you were born with a vagina and presenting in a man and as a man, and your performance is convincing as a man, then why would anybody be concerned about that? Why on earth would that be an issue? That trans man is at no threat from the men around her, and she's certainly around him, and he's certainly not a threat to anyone else. And I have to say that the threat presented to natal women by trans women is largely illusory. The numbers of actual assaults that have occurred is tiny, absolutely tiny. There are more assaults carried out on trans women by women than the other way around. And that's the truth. So what you're looking at here, when you look at it from a man's point of view, you realize that what you're looking at is this extremely nasty project on the part of feminists to increase women's fear of men. Because basically they already have everything they ever asked for. We just, yeah, fine. You want the vote? You can have the vote. You want to work in factories? Feel free. Feel free. You want to drive the car? Carry on. I'll sit in the back. It's no problem for me. All of this, we just went, yeah, fine. Why would we worry? You want to come and play golf on our courses? Well, okay, fair enough. We'll put a tee a bit further down so that you get a fair crack at it because you're not as strong as we are. All that sort of stuff, we just did it. And we didn't make a fight about it. It was never been a fight about it. Feminists today are in the position of having to create division. They're having to create fear in order to remain politically relevant. And that's what this is all about. This is all about some very, very, very nasty women determined to hold on to the power that they've managed to accrue to themselves and to expand it such that they can establish the gynocracy in which men will have no voice and women will decide everything. That's what they actually want. And attacking trans women is just a path to it. It's just one of the avenues they use. It's easy. I agree. Look, I agree. Your Western model of autogynephilic trans woman, it probably isn't doing herself too many favours, I mean, if you're 6'4" and built like the side of a house, it's going to be kind of easy to think bad things about you. But what about someone like Sam? Or, I don't know, over 100 other trans women like her that I know personally. Who nobody knows they're actually male when they're out in public. Unless they're actually taking a tape measure to the hips and going, hey man, kind of slender in the hips, you. Which actually some of us find attractive, by the way. But anyway, what I'm saying is you don't know. And so what the feminists are doing is they're taking the most obvious examples, the most obviously scary examples, and suggesting that that is actually can be generalized, that it's descriptive of this entire group of people. And that's complete and utter nonsense. In exactly the same way as trying to take the tiny number of actual events in which women have been harmed, physically harmed, by trans women, and make it into this great big huge general threat. It's absolute nonsense. It's absolute nonsense because AGPs are trying to be women. And so why would they do that? Why would they break all that? You know? But if you're a feminist, because your detestation of men, your loathing of men is so intense, you can't ever allow yourself to think that men could be actually decent, ordinary, reasonable, nice people. You're not able to think that of us. You're the sexist ones, not us. You are. You're the ones who hate men. We don't hate women. And one expression of your hatred of maleness is in your attitude towards trans women.